Welcome back, my friends, to TFT Hyperroll with Autarch, and this is another game from the previous patch that was just a really fun game to play, although it kind of does cover stuff that is popular now in the new patch, because the meta hasn't changed that much, and this comp is still quite viable, so you can use the strategy from this video to use in the new comp if you so choose. There are other comps I think that are stronger, but sometimes it gives you one right off the bat, and it'll be easier to go with it than to try and find one of the stronger ones, which may or may not appear when you want it to. Heading into the first set of augments, this game had not revealed itself, so I didn't have anything to base on what I wanted to do, so I just grabbed the portable forge thinking there's gonna be some kind of decent item out there that I'm going to be able to use as I put things together. At this point, just looking for things that work. When I see a Disco Dazzler with Nami and then an additional one, that means I know I can go for it, immediately have Disco, and then have a backup to bring Nami back in later. Because the goal with Disco Dazzler is that you're going to essentially get yourself to 8, then dump your headliner and hope for Twisted Fate or Blitzcrank. With multi-talented, it's much better because you really can't go wrong since you're going to get the Disco trait no matter what. In this game, I'm going to temporarily use a Mumu as my item holder for things that are ultimately going to go on Blitzcrank. Generally, you're going to put a lot of your AP items onto Twisted Fate, then the tank items onto Blitzcrank, but that's not until much later. Generally, I look to use whoever is the headliner as an item holder. In this case, it's Nami, and we don't yet have any AP items really to put on her that would translate well over to Twisted Fate. We could go with the Nashter's Tooth, but that's not one of my favorites. Since we are going to want AP items, first item choice, gonna go for the needlessly large rod so that we have some AP in our build. Ultimately, Twisted Fate used to be just really raw power. They supposedly have buffed it so that speed, which is what he's supposed to stack off of, is going to have a greater impact, but it doesn't feel that way in the new patch, so raw power still works really well. If you happen to get Namumu, he makes a great early item holder for those Blitzcrank items because he creates Guardian alongside of Tarek. So he's going to get that little extra shield and just hold everyone in place while your backline, which is often Nami and Bard, can pretty much finish people off. It is time for our second set of augments, and we get more prismatic ones. Nothing super exciting here. Ultimately, the Unleashed Arena is going to give us a lot of AP items, so that's going to be good for Twisted Fate when we're down the line, so we can go ahead and take that one. Since that augment comes with a magnetic remover, we don't have to then use Nami as the item holder. Bard tends to be a little more powerful, handing out heals and damage, and every once in a while a few extra gold, so I'd love to get some additional power and casting time onto Bard throughout this match. Echo is also a major portion of this team. That's because you're also looking to bring in Gragas and then potentially Sona at the end, which will give you Spellweaver. But more so than that, once you get Blitzcrank, who is absolutely critical, along with Echo, you will get Sentinel. And while it's only going to be Sentinel 2, that little extra can help a ton, especially with the healing from the Disco. We have an item choice here, and as I'm actually pretty happy with my items at this moment, I'm going to go ahead and just take the duplicator, and then we end up with a gold 3-star Tarek, which actually means more now in the new patch than it did because they buffed him a little bit. Not huge damage, but he's going to actually do some damage now. We flipped over to Lux instead of Echo for this fight because that brings us up to the 4 Dazzlers, which just adds a little extra oomph into everything that Bard is doing. And that's going to be critical for keeping our win streak going because this can get a little rough in about stage 8. It is time for the final augment. Remember, your roots isn't terrible, so we're going to hold on to it for a second because a lot of people are going to be either Disco or Dazzler. But once you see return on investment, it's very hard to beat that. So we go ahead and take that. We managed to find a Blitzcrank, so we now have the 2 Disco balls, and we hold out Amumu and put the Amumu items on Blitzcrank, who's going to be our main tank. And you are hoping by this point in the match you are up at the top of the health charts. Whether unbeaten or not doesn't matter, but you shouldn't be feeling like you're in any danger, because once you get into stage 8, you are dumping your headliner and you are rolling and hoping you're finding either a Blitzcrank or a Twisted Fate. Although in this particular match I'm going to make an exception, and that's because we are currently unbeaten. In Stage 8, you have a 30% chance of rolling 4 cost as a headliner, which is okay but not great. If you can hold out till 9, which in this case we can because we're not going to lose that much holding on till 9, go ahead and do it so you increase your chance to nearly 100% chance of getting those 4 costs. You are very likely to suffer losses through 8, but that's only going to be a total of 8 points. Again, it depends where you are in the match. If you're up at 20, you can probably get away with it. If you're down lower, it's a little more risky. You don't want to leave yourself with 1 life left going into this round. Now, a lot is going to go on here. First, we get the 2-star Blitz and the 2-star Ziggs. Ziggs has some excellent items on him, so he is set. Then we go ahead and we can grab our last tank item from Blitz, so our front line is going to be pretty set. We got the Twisted Fate headliner. We can go ahead and put that headliner in, move the other Twisted Fate to the bench, remove the items from Bard, but unfortunately a little too late, so we have a Twisted Fate with no items. But we were able to lock for the last one we need in the shop because we have a duplicator, so we're going to have a 3-star Twisted Fate by the time we're done. And there is a very important little trick I want to show you at the end of this particular match. But first, let's cover that despite the loss, we are now into the top 4. But how do we get the items on Twisted Fate that we want? So we have a Twisted Fate on the bench, and then we also have one in the shop. We can take it up to 3 stars, but before we do that, we want to get the items that we want on Twisted Fate on the one that's on the board. That's the items that will stay. So now, when we take him up, it takes the items off the one that was on the bench, and we can then put those items onto Sona, so we're all set to go. So if you ever find yourself in a similar position, remember it's the one that's on the board that keeps the items. But at this point, this team is a little unreasonably strong. I have Sona in damage mode, which means she's handing out more AP to Twisted Fate, who has got a lot of power, and you will see just how quickly they are able to decimate opposing teams. It is time for our last couple of item choices. Thieves' Gloves will go ahead and put on Zac, who we brought in just to add Bruiser because we had return on investment, so we ended up with an additional person on the board. That allows us to also have Hyper Pop as well, at least 2 pops of Hyper Pop, because we've got Ziggs and an additional Lulu. Give Sona a Morellonomicon just to add a little burn to her attack and get ready to go. And even though Twisted Fate is not an automatic win, with Ziggs as well, with the items that Zig has, it's pretty close. If we 2-starred the Sona, then this would pretty much be a lock, but as you can see, we're still dominating. And we just moved Twisted Fate out of the direct corner because this other team has an Akali, so let her get stuck on Bard for a moment while Twisted Fate is able to pretty much wreck the rest of the team. When Sona hits her drop, who is now 2 stars, you can see it ends rather quickly. And we check in against the team we're facing, and it's a fairly simple team for us to get through. We can move Twisted Fate back into the corner because that is a true damage Akali, so she is not necessarily going to jump into the back line. She's going to get stuck in front. The biggest problem is the 2-star Kiana, but we have enough meat between us and Twisted Fate to hold her back. You can see she goes down pretty quick. Twisted Fate then works to finish off the rest of it in one giant swoop, and it's GG for everyone. Disco Dazzlers is a lot of fun. I suggest multi-talented before you jump into it, but give it a try. Hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, have an absolutely awesome day.